Good morning, doctors and friends. We are from Student Group Discussion B5. We're going to present our student projects today. It is called Guns and its Wounds. We're going to discuss more about the types, mechanisms, and disclosure in victims. So here are our group members. To start off, let me introduce myself first. My name is Dewi Bintang Purnotasari, with student number of 2002511211. So here are our table of contents. We'll be discussing about the introductions, literature review, and also the conclusions. To start off, I'll be explaining about the introduction first. Gunshot wounds are traumatic, violent, and complicated injuries. It is encountered frequently in forensic practice that has the potential to result in death. Gunshot wounds also brought from projectiles that were launched from a barrel after gunpowder was ignited, and it will be penetrating the flesh. Recently, there's a premeditated murder case happening in Indonesia. Brigadier Noviansyah Yosua Huta Barat, or we called as Brigadier J, happens to be the victim of this crime. The crime is done by gunshot strikes towards the victim. Reflecting from this case, we should be aware that the importance of the forensic pathologist examinations in order to diagnose, evaluate, and treat gunshot wounds, and aiding medical, legal, and law enforcement investigations to whether the injury was a result of homicide or suicide. So here are our problem formulations. Here are our writing proposed. And here are our writing benefits.
Okay, my name is Ananda Karaharja with last three digits of student ID number 136, and I will start the chapter 2 about 2.1 gunshot and gunshot wound. So, gunshot wound or ballistic wound is a traumatic and complex injury that occurs when the body is penetrated by a projectile from a firearm. It may occur due to accident, homicide, or suicide, and can be fatal to death due to bleeding, organ damage, and wound infection. The gunshot wound types based on the pattern of injury is penetration, perforation, and avulsion. So this is a simple sketch comparing several types of projectiles. A is in rifles, B in handguns, C in muzzle-loading rifles, and D is ammunition structure. And then the types of firearms is classified as rifle firearms, shotgun or smoothbore firearms, and also country-made firearms. And the classification of gunshot wounds based on the bullet velocity. The number one is high velocity projectile injuries. So the muzzle velocity is greater than 2000 feet per second. And then low, the muzzle velocity is less than 2000 feet per second. And also shotgun, weapon with unique ballistic pattern with a muzzle velocity 1000 until 1500 feet per second. Okay, maybe that's all from me. Then the next slide will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
So next I will explain about the classification of gunshot wound. Based on projectile speed of travel, gunshot wound can be classified into entry and exit wound. Entry wound is more symmetrical and smaller. It exhibits tissue invagination into the wound, and depending on the distance, the skin around the wound will show singeing and flame burns, or tattooing or reading from gas, and there are abrasion rim and grease color. While exit wound is more irregular and larger, both soft tissue and margin beveling upward, and there are no grease color or abrasion rim or tattooing. Next is classification based on distance of fire. Gunshot wound can be classified into contact wound that can be divided again into firm and loose contact wounds, and it usually show muzzle impression on the skin. Next is near contact wound. It will show flame burns and hair sizzling. Mid-range wound will show presence of smoke, gas, and unburned particles, and there are no flame burns or hair singeing. For distant wound, any additional materials alongside the wound will embed, aside from lubricant forming grease color. And last is indiscriminate wound. It has irregular form and happen outside the weapon's field of view. That's all from me. The presentation will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mandi Kirana Chandra Putri with my student ID number is 20025 1168, and I'm going to explain about the pathology of gunshot wound. So there are two main processes underlying wounds caused by bullets. So the first one is tissue is destroyed by the compressions and shearing of the projectiles that leaves a projectile trail and will cause a permanent cavitations. And the other one is when the tissue is distended due to the projectile trail's high energy pressures, vibrations, and will cause temporary cavitations. Other characteristics that will be found such as abraded rim, muscle burns, soiling surrounded the skin by gas and smokes, and also tattooing and also flame burns. Gunshot wound is greatly influenced by two things. So the first one is the projectile characteristics as well as the tissue characteristics. And it is said that the elastic tissue adjusts easier to temporary deformations compared to the less elastic one. The projectile, when it passes through the bone, can also produce secondary projectiles due to the bursting of the bone. That is all from me. Thank you. Continuing on, my name is Livia Scala with 3-digit number 169. I'm going to explain about the mechanism of gunshot wounds. Trauma from the gunshots occurs when the projectile fired by firearms that enters the body. The mechanism of formation of the injury includes the compression of tissue by projectile and their disruption when these compressive forces are greater than the elasticity of the tissue. The projectile's mass, velocity, form, and also composition, which are also relying on the kind of gun being used, determine how much damage is done. The trauma caused by bullets can cause permanent cavitation and or tissue stretching. Tissue crushing happens when a bullet crushes and destroys the tissue, and it also can be observed when autopsy is done. Meanwhile, when a bullet's wound track momentarily leaves an empty space, the temporary wound cavity results. Typically, from the inflicted wounds, we can observe whether it is an entry or exit wounds. Entrance wounds are where the bullet enters the body. They are round, oval, or rarely in irregular shapes, with an abrasion ring around it. Exit wounds shows where the bullet leaves the body, and in vast majority of the cases, they are irregular shapes because the skin is excavated from the inside out. Around the exit wound, there are no soot depression, stippling, or muzzle imprint appearance. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Taman Surya. With last 3 digits serial number is 150, so now I will explain about the gunshot incident and direction. To start, I'll divide the type of gunshot wound based on the shooting distance into 5 main categories, namely hard contact, near contact, mid-range, distant, and indeterminate wound. Different wounds can be seen as range increase, and it is due to muscle, carbon monoxide, and soiling. The first one is hard contact wounds, has abrasion in the shape of a gun muzzle. Most of the elements from the shot enter with the bullet. The second one is near contact wounds that has black color and the element of fire, shot, and gunpowder in the area around the wound. The third one is mid-range wound that has no burn on muscle feature, but unburned bullet elements were still found near the wound. The fourth one is distant wound that has hollow center surrounded by an aperted rim in the edges. The existence of tattoos is not found. The last one is indeterminate wounds that are atypical due to shots that are outside the reach of the weapon. The second one is shooting direction. The gunshot direction can be estimated by calculating with the trigonometric formula and the angle system of right triangle. Trigonometric formula to estimate the impact angle of the gunshot. The angle system of right triangle to estimate the location and height of the shooter. The aspect of shooting direction can be divided into 2 categories, namely the first one is elevation if the location of the bullet hole is higher than the shooter's shoulder. The second one is depression if the location of the bullet hole is lower than the shooter's shoulder. That's all for me. Thank you.
First of all, my name is Putu Ardisa Pradeswari with student ID number 200211172, and I will explain about the effect of distance and direction in gun shooting. First, bullet trajectory also important for court investigation and surgeons. A case report shows that unusual bullet path can be found in gunshot injury. In the case report show that the entry wound is near the left nipple, but during operations and medical exam, the bullet was found in iliac fossa. The patient was believed to hurt while fleeing from the gunfire. With the bullet coming from the above to below, this also showed that bullet trajectory determined not only for case investigation and judicial proceeding, but also medical interventions use. That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Amanda with a student number of 237. So I'm going to explain the effect while shooting a gun with different distance. A gunshot residue or GSR can be used in investigation to determine the different distance used while shooting. A research found that gas scorching is more invisible as the distance is more far away. A shotgun and rifle weapon wound, especially in close range and if it contact to the bone, will have same appearance, which is radial tears and Pax crater. In close range rifle weapon wound, especially in soft tissue, it will appear small, rounded, and clean. And using a rifle weapon while the range is above 1 meter, it is hard to determine the accurate shooting range and the caliber used in the firearms. This is a table that indicates different appearance while different range used in shooting a shotgun. That's all from me. Thank you for the attention.
My last digit of student ID is 1, and today I'm going to present about the examination of gunshot. So there are ways to examine the victim. We can use anamnesis to determine if it's by oneself or someone else. If it is self-inflicted, is it suicide or accident? And if by another person, is it intentional or unintentional? And with physical examination, you can assess what type of gun and the distance between the gunshot and the gun. And there are things that could affect the clinical manifestation of gun wounds, like metal particles, incomplete burning of gunpowder, smoke and heat from the explosion, and tissue damage from the muzzle pressing against the skin of the target in a patch gun wound. And these are some additional examinations. There are examination for preparation of blood transfusion and examination for evaluation of location and severity damage. Usually a multi-detector or computed tomography or MDCT is the suggested imaging test for those who have sustained gunshot wounds. You can have found these things that are listed in the PowerPoint. And in medical facilities, without the MDCT technology, the imaging examination can be chosen according to the anatomical location of the gunshot. We can use X-rays. It can be used to examine gunshot wounds to the chest and extremities. We can use ultrasound or focus assessment with sonography trauma, or FAST in short. And it can be used to examine gunshot wounds to the abdomen, and a head CT scan can be also performed if the gunshot wound is located on the head.
My name is Putri Ordina Setiawan with us in number 37. Now I'll continue to the next part about determination of the cause of death from gunshot wounds. So in general, there are three most common mechanisms of gunshot wounds that could result in death. First is massive blood loss, second is trauma, and the third is infection. Massive blood loss can lead to the cause of death, and this condition will be occur when the bullet penetrates to the great arteries and causing blood vessel to bleed. Next is trauma. Trauma can happen when the bullet enters an important organ such as brain, nervous systems, lungs, and it can be resolved as an immediate cause of death. Next is infection. Infection may occur when a huge wound not treated properly because the bullets have bring a lot of germs. For the next part will be continued by my friends. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mira Abagrace Picha with the last three numbers 018, and I will continue by talking about the submission of the gunshot wounds in the postmortem at rectum. So for the medical investigations, there are several steps. First of all, anamnesis. Second, examination of the vital signs. Third, description of the injuries. Fourth, treatments or the cares provided. And for the injuries of the wound, they must be described clearly, completely, and well. There are also 8 key points in describing a gunshot wound for postmortem at rectums. First of all, the locations. We need to measure the distance from the top of the head or soles of the feet and right and left of the midline of the body, and also the general location of the body parts. Second, we must describe the external wound, such as the size and shape, circle of abrasion, thickness and center, burns, intact skin folds or not, gunpoint pressure. Third, visible gunshot residue such as grain powder, black powder deposits, including corona, tattoos, and metal stripping. And fourth, the changes, whether made by the medical profession or by the funeral team. Fifth, the tracks. Sixth, the exit wound. Seventh, weapons used. Eighth, how the shot was taken, such as the direction of the shot and the shooting distance. So here is an example of the submission in the postmortem and repertum. It will be described as clearly as shown. I will continue the presentation. Well, that is all from me. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and then it will be continued by my friend.
Okay, thank you for your time. Hello, my name is Naomi Margaret Ber Panjaitan, and the last 3 digit of my student number is 167. Here, I'm going to state the conclusion of our student project. Gunshot wound is a traumatic injury that occurs when the body is penetrated by a projectile from a gun. Gunshot wound is also known as ballistic wound. In general, there are 3 most common mechanisms of gunshot wounds that could result in death, which are massive blood loss, trauma, and infection. In Visum et Repertum, several carry points of gunshot wound must be explained, such as location, description of the external wound, visible gunshot residue, changes, tracks, exit wound, shooting process, type of weapon used, and how the shooting was done. Moreover, gunshot wound is greatly influenced by the projectile tissue characteristics, which include the projectile's velocity, mass, shape, caliber, material, yawing, and impact distance. The types of tissue impacted by the projectile's impact are also greatly influenced the injury. And then, the appearance of gunshot wound is affected by the firing mechanism, which includes gun shooting distance and also direction. Okay, next. These are some references that we use in our student project. Next. Okay, next. Okay, that's all from SGDB 5. Thank you.